In a world where math rocks control your destiny, adventurers wield swords, staves, and... Wait a minute! Is that a fucking boomerang? Howdy, adventurers. Welcome to Does It D&D, where we take fan-suggested fictional characters and try to create a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition character sheet for them. For this episode, we will be doing a crossover with the most beautiful, slow-mo punching, mock speed ass-kicking superhero from Capcom, Viewtiful Joe. For the breakdown, here is how we will determine the character level. We are going to operate on a power scale from 1 to 20. Obviously, whatever number that falls on is going to be the level of the character. 1 being the equivalent of a normal human being, and 20 being a character with like Superman level of powers. I would put Viewtiful Joe at about a 10 on that scale, due to his time-altering powers and supreme butt-whooping abilities. This means that we would be making a level 10 character. First, let's start with an overview of Joe's abilities. Joe has access to his VFX powers, consisting of a few key elements: slow, mock speed, zoom in, and replay. Slow is pretty self-explanatory as he can manipulate time, obviously slowing it down. Same with mock speed. It's slow, but the opposite. He can go a little faster, still controlling the flow of time. As you can see, there is a little bit of a recurring pattern here. Zoom in is where Joe zooms in the camera on himself and gains access to additional crushing blows to his enemies. And lastly, replay allows Joe to record an attack pattern and repeat it multiple times for additional damage. In addition to some other abilities that he has, that would include enhanced strength and agility and martial arts proficiencies.
Should have gone with A.
Based on this information, I'm going to go with the variant human species, and we're going to be making a multi-class out of this character. So for the class selection, we are going to go Monk and Wizard. For Monk, we are going to go with 5 levels into it, and we are going to select a subclass from Xanathar's Guide, and we are going to choose the Way of the Kensei Monk. For Wizard, I'm going to select something from Critical Role's expansion and select the Chronergy Wizard due to the time-altering abilities that Joe has. When it comes to class progression, I'd probably get those 5 levels of Monk first, just because you're going to be able to get the extra attack and the speed. Then I would round out those levels of Wizard, because that's just something that's like icing on the cake. So, Kensei Monk is going to allow us to get access to extra attack for those beautiful combinations. For the ranged weapon, we can respec the darts that are given in the Monk class to a boomerang that this character would theoretically use. Side note, DMs, if you don't allow creativity at your table and you want to be a rules lawyer DM, then this isn't the video for you, dude. Why don't you just hit that X button? I don't care if you dislike even. Seriously, no one wants to play with you. In all seriousness though, at my table, I highly encourage customization and creativity, because why would you just want to copy-paste character? Like, playing the same class, over and over again, if you like doing that, can be repetitive, so why not respec a couple things? Now, things get a little bit fancier when we get into Chronergy Wizard. To mimic the slow ability, we are going to pick up the slow spell. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Now, another spell that we want to choose for our list, and this is going to be for mock speed, the only way that I could think of is the haste spell, allowing additional actions and improved movement speed to mimic the mock speed ability that Joe has. Personally, I would focus heavily on utility spells with this build, just because you'll have a couple of key spells that you're going to use for this build, hence slow and haste, and then in addition, you want to kind of be able to help your party out in any means necessary. So here's the list of spells I selected when I was doing this build. But if you don't want to do any of these spells, just choose the ones that, your heart desires. Ultimately, this isn't going to be a perfect copy-paste of Viewtiful Joe, but at the end of the day, we want something that's relatively close to it to see if it does, in fact, D&D. Now, you're probably wondering, how would you use this character for combat? Because when we come and make D&D characters, they're going to be used for two things primarily, and that's going to be roleplay and combat. Now, clearly, this is going to be a combat-driven character, so how would I do this? Pretty easy for me. I would open up with the haste spell and move up and get close up to a couple of minion-level enemies, like a group of them. Then I would just kind of punch with the additional action that I get from haste on my first turn, and bonus action to get flurry of blows. That way I can dish out big damage on that first turn alone, and future turns as well, because that haste spell is going to come into use. Now, depending on how combat is flowing, if you need to use slow to stop an advancement of enemies, drop concentration and use that by all means. However, I would recommend punching with haste activated, then use Step of the Wind to cut off enemy flank attempts instead of trying to slow them down, and you even have access to that trusty boomerang if you need it. Now, most combats I've been in, they never go for longer than a minute in-game, since the pacing of the stories that I play with my friends are a little different than most campaigns. However, for those DMs with amazing, lengthy combats, if your haste somehow comes to an end, you're going to get that lethargy that the haste spell brings up. So after your haste lethargy ends, I would recommend casting slow, and after that, you're just going to punch your way through things, and combat will be probably over mostly shortly thereafter, because monks are going to deal high damage amounts. Unless your DM is clinically insane and does 10-hour combats. If you're one of those DMs, what the fuck is going on in your brain? And with that, that's how I would build Viewtiful Joe in Dungeons & Dragons. So, the ultimate question. Does it D&D? I would say yes. Viewtiful Joe does D&D. Well, that's it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you guys like this video, comment what characters you'd love to see next, and hit that subscribe button. We have a D&D podcast that we release every single Friday. We have 2 campaigns currently going on. Go to the link in the description below, and you can check that out. Otherwise, that's all for today, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, do me a solid. Take it easy.